This is a serious place. It should not be treated like a game. This is not reality television. This place should not be about who gets the win on the nightly news. Our government is not going to play those games. What is happening in this parliament today should concern Australians. Right now, in the House of Representatives, the Labor Party is not cooperating to pass important encryption legislation that would ensure that police, ASIO, other agencies, they won't have the powers to access encrypted messages which can help them thwart a terrorist attack. They can be passed this morning. They are delaying the passage of those bills to play games in the parliament with national security. That's in the House of Representatives. In the Senate, the Labor Party is playing games with crossbenchers and others to try and introduce laws that completely undermine the successful border protection framework that has been saving lives for the last 5 years. For what purpose are they doing this? To seek a cheap win in the House of Representatives. The Labor Party have shown Australians today that when it comes to national security and border protection, they'll trade it all for politics. Bill Shorten's mettle has been tested on national security today and border protection and has been found untrue. Bill Shorten does not have the mettle to deal with national security. He does not have the mettle to deal with border protection. Our government has demonstrated that we do. I have demonstrated that I do. You know, in this place, people can have some short memories. It wasn't that long ago where boats crashed on the rocks and children were dragged up from the sea face down. I remember it. I stopped it with a suite of measures that were necessary together to stop that horror. Temporary protection visas. I had to legislate through the parliament and Labor tried to stop me, but we passed them. Offshore processing, which they resisted and resisted and resisted, and then put into place, and then we made it work. And turning back boats where it's safe to do so, which everyone told us wasn't possible. But I did it, we did it, and it worked. Labor has already said they want to get rid of temporary protection visas. They think it doesn't matter. Kevin Rudd said the same thing in August of 2008. He got rid of it and the boats came again. Now Labor want to abolish offshore processing as we know it, turn it into a transit lounge. They have learned nothing when it comes to what it takes to protect our borders in this country. Yes, the boats haven't been arriving, but you know, there's about 12,000 people sitting in Indonesia right now who would happily get on a boat if they thought they had the green light. And what Labor is doing today is showing, even now in opposition, with the cockiness that thinks they will just walk into government, that they can give in to these things. I will fight them on this. I will seek to stop them doing this. I will fight to get those encryption laws passed. And I will fight to stop any change to that offshore processing arrangement, which I know directly and personally has been so critical to maintaining the successful border protection framework that has kept our borders secure and has prevented young people, children, going onto boats and drowning. Let's not forget the horror of 6,500 children being put into detention, 17 detention centres being opened. $11.5 billion in cost blowouts. And we've come to government and we've fixed the problem. In the last 3 months, I've taken 100 children off Nauru. There are 10 children on Nauru today. So don't let them tell you this is about getting children off Nauru. That's a con. That's happened. And it happened under the government's border protection arrangements. This is about getting rid of offshore processing. They never believed it in the first place. They had to be forced into even doing it in the dying days of their previous government. And when they implemented it, it was a tragic shocker of an implementation which took incredible investment and effort to fix it. I know because I was the one who had to fix it. These are important issues. And the obsession with the political games of Canberra to try and score a one-upmanship for the nightly news is damaging our national interest today. And I want it to stop. And I would call on the Labor Party to pass the encryption bills. Pass the encryption bills so we can ensure that as we leave this place, that our police can be equipped to stop terrorists. Stopping terrorists is more important than getting a cheap win on the nightly news out of Canberra. And on their support for amendments that are being touted in the Senate that would abolish offshore processing as we know it, don't do it, Bill. Don't do it, Bill. The cheap win on the House of Representatives floor is not worth it. Because you know what you'll be telling every Australian? Every single Australian? If you support those amendments, Bill, you'll be telling them what they really already know. And that when it comes to border protection, your heart isn't in it and you and your party cannot be trusted. That you've learnt nothing from the horror show you inflicted on them when you were last in government. So, I think you know where I stand on this issue. I've always stood in the same place on this issue. I will never move from where I stand on this issue. We'll continue to ensure a strong border protection framework for Australia that has been successful, and we will continue to deliver the leadership on national security. We're no longer joined at the hip when it comes to the Labor Party. I doubt we really ever were. Every single time they have to be dragged along. Well, we are the party of national security and we can keep Australians safe. Bill Shorten hasn't got the medal for it.
So why is it a threat to offshore detention overall, this change, this amendment going through the Senate that requires doctors to sign off on people who are ill and need treatment on the mainland? Why is that a threat to offshore detention in Thailand?
We already have processes where if people are requiring medical attention, then decisions are made now. That's what we have now. What this does is takes the decision away effectively from the government and inserts a whole range of additional processes, which basically means, on one of the proposals I've seen, you get one doctor to sign it off, and if in 48 hours the government doesn't make a decision, they're on the next plane. And that says...
say that people are still sick there and being left there, and the decisions being made by the bureaucrats are leaving them there, not giving them attention they need.
Well, we have considerable medical support and services, both in Nauru and in Manus Island. And where people require that attention, then it is provided, as has been the case with the children who have been transferred or have been able to remove to other locations. But don't kid yourself. Don't kid yourself. You make that change to that process for offshore processing, the people smugglers, it'll be in their brochures by this afternoon. Right. That's where it'll be. I mean, we always think that this stuff is marketed differently in the minds of 12,000 people sitting in Indonesia. They're not going to sit there and read a Senate report or anything like that. They'll hear the people smuggler who sidles up to them and says, hey, guess what? The Australians have changed the legislation. You won't have to stay on Nauru or Manus. All you have to do is get some doctor in Australia to sign it off and it's all good, mate. It's all good. And then they'll be on their way. They'll be selling the tickets again. They'll be selling the tickets again. I know this. I lived it. I understand the intelligence that sits behind it. I know how the smugglers operate because I've beaten them before.
Prime Minister, on your admonition about political games, will you give a commitment that your Senate team will not play political games to ensure the House doesn't get to vote on this bill if it's approved by the Senate today?
I will do everything in my power to ensure that these suggested changes that would undermine our border protection laws never see the light of day. I will do whatever I can. Whatever I can. I'll fight them using whatever tool or tactic I have available to me to ensure that we do not undermine our border protection laws, because I take them seriously.
In 2011, you as Shadow Minister for Immigration discussed with Greens and other crossbenchers blocking Labor trying to overturn the High Court decision on the Malaysia solution, trying to inflict a loss on a minority government on the House of Representatives. How is that different to what Labor's doing?
We thought the Malaysian deal was a bad deal and the wrong policy.
And they think your policy is the wrong policy. Can you just
No,
explain?
well, so do they? Does the Labor Party think that the government's border protection policies are wrong?
They clearly want to amend it.
No, they say, no, hang on. No, this is an important point. The Labor Party have been telling the Australian people that they're the same as us on border protection. Now, you've just put it to me that the Labor Party aren't that they actually have a different view to the government on border protection. Now, if that's your impression, I would like Bill Shorten to tidy that up. Don't ask me about it.
Does this give you a fighting chance?
Prime Minister, why won't the boat turnbacks alone stop people smugglers from being able to sell passage to Australia? I mean, that is the crucial difference between what happened under Kevin Rudd, which you keep talking about, and what's happening
It was
now.
all three. I know it was all
Still
three.
think that it's offshore processing.
It's at temporary detection visas, offshore processing, turning boats back where it's safe to do so. That's what I promised to do back prior to 2013. It was a package deal. It was a package of measures that worked together, and it worked. Why do I think it worked? No boats. The scorecard on this is pretty clear. I mean, if people are still doubting that the government's border protection policies that we took to the 2013 election were somehow ineffective, seriously, read the history.
Just on what you'll do today,
Can I just ask what you'll do today? The Attorney General did write to Mark Dreyfus saying the government commits to introducing the agreed amendments on the encryption bill in the Senate, subject to the passage of the bill through the House of Representatives without amendment. Does that still stand?
Well, the exchanges between the attorney and the shadow attorney required for these matters in the House to have been dealt with last night, but games were played with the Joint Committee report last night until matters were then carried in today. So this is what we keep seeing, David. They keep saying they're with us on national security and then keep laying blockers along the way. They're not fair income. They're just not fair income. They're intent on just frustrating and embarrassing the government. I get it. That's politics. That's my point. Bill Shorten is all about politics. I'm about keeping Australians safe.
Isn't it also politics now to change how you'll deal with these encryption amendments, dealing with the House to buy enough time to see off this migration bill?
I want them to pass them. They can give us leave and we can pass the amendments straight away. It's Labor that will be forcing us to consider those amendments one at a time.
Prime Minister, the government worked very hard to find a point of difference between national security and border protection between yourself and the opposition. Has this now finally given you your point of difference with the opposition on border protection? And does this give you a fighting chance in the election?
I don't care about the politics on this. I don't care.
But you just said you do whatever you could to stop Labor.
Yes, because I don't want to see Australia's border protection framework undermined. I want to see our police have the powers they need to stop terrorists. I mean, seriously, guys, let the fog, let the scales fall from your eyes. This is not about politics. This is about Australia's national security. That's why I'm standing here. This is about Australia's national security. It's not about what happens on the floor of the House or the floor of the Senate. You've got to look past Canberra. This is about Australia's safety. And Bill Shorten is a clear and present threat to Australia's safety because he's so obsessed with politics that he cannot see the national interest.
The Labor amendment would retain ministerial oversight of this arrangement. Why is that a threat to national security? The Minister still has the final say.
And which is all reviewable. And you know what? I'm not going to see an arrangement put in place that could ever see potentially, and I hope a long way down the track, a Labor minister being responsible for a decision like that. We've got a clear policy. It's working. It has worked for 5 years. It has kept Australians safe. Anyone who wants to have a debate with me about that, happy to line up any day of the week.
Prime Minister.
Why would you change something that has demonstrably worked so successfully, so hard won, and at great cost? Why on earth would Bill Shorten sell all of that out for a cheap day in politics?